March 8th, 2014. On this date, one of the most shocking and mysterious plane incidents of recent years took place and continues to intrigue us all today. The Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. In this video, we'll try to unveil what really happened to the infamous flight by using its real audio, so make sure to keep watching. Flight. The MH370 was supposed to be just another routine flight between Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and Beijing, China, with 239 people on board, including the pilot, co-pilot, 10 cabin crew members, and 227 passengers. The flight was supposed to take 5 hours and 34 minutes. However, the plane never arrived in Beijing. Almost a decade later, public opinion and investigators still want to know what really happened to the MH370 flight. First, let's go through the facts to understand what we know happened that day. At 12:42 a.m., the pilot Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah and co-pilot First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid made contact with the Malaysian Air Traffic Control, which authorized the Boeing 777 plane to depart from the Kuala Lumpur International Airport.
370, 32 right of takeoff. Nice.
About 1 hour after the departure, everything was going as planned. As the plane was about to enter Vietnamese airspace, the flight was instructed to sign off from the Kuala Lumpur control and sign into Ho Chi Minh.
Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
And those were the last words anyone heard from the aircraft. About 2 minutes later, the plane stopped emitting radar signals and disappeared from radar screens at both Kuala Lumpur and Ho Chi Minh. The only two possible explanations for this sudden error: it was either due to an electrical failure or the system was shut down manually by someone on board, most likely in the cockpit. From this point on, air traffic control tried to contact the plane multiple times, but they were all in vain. As unbelievable as it could be, the MH370 had apparently vanished without leaving any trace and was quickly declared officially missing. At that moment, one of the most intriguing and the most expensive search efforts in the history of aviation was set in motion. An unexpected detour. At first, investigators concentrated the search around the flight's disappearance area, between the South China Sea and the Gulf of Thailand. But soon after that, the Malaysian military presented some evidence from their military radars, which were able to track the position of flying targets. It revealed that right after contact with the plane was lost, the aircraft deviated significantly from its original path. The airplane took a slight turn to the right, followed by a strong 180-degree turn to the left, and went on to cross the Malaysian peninsula. It then turned right once more near Penang Island and kept going northwest until it disappeared from the radar's coverage just past the Malacca Strait. With that, this area also started to be searched, but nothing was found. Meanwhile, investigators tried to analyze the plane's satellite communication records from its SATCOM, or Satellite Communications Terminal. This system emits satellite data from engine performance and works whether or not other tracking systems are turned off. In about every hour, the aircraft will send a signal with data on it to the satellite. In return, the satellite will respond, transferring that data to a ground station. With that, investigators tracked 5 automatic signals that formed an arc where the plane presumably passed through. The 7th and final signal was made around an arc in the southern Indian Ocean, and after it was transmitted, data stopped. In other words, that's where the MH370 potentially crashed. Over the next few weeks, the biggest search in history began and was taken over by the Australian government. The search area was refined and the flight path was often improved, but nothing was found. Only on July 29th, 2015, a discovery was made. While cleaning a beach in Reunion, a small island next to Madagascar, a group of people stumbled upon a 2-meter-long metallic object. Experts identified the object as a section of a plane wing known as a flaperon, and after further inspection, concluded that it belonged to the MH370. For the first time, investigators had evidence that strongly suggested that the plane crashed in the Indian Ocean. This unlikely discovery boosted other searches along beaches of southeastern Africa, resulting in 31 items that were recovered and later examined. 18 of them were considered likely, very likely, and almost certain to be from the MH370, but only 3 were confirmed, while the remaining were not identified. Meanwhile, Earth observation satellites uncovered a series of images from March 2014 which appeared to feature man-made objects floating on and below the surface of the southern Indian Ocean. However, as the images weren't sharp enough to possibly identify any marking, this material was discarded. Theories and more. Theories. With such a mysterious and yet unsolved case, it's no surprise that the MH370's disappearance sparked several conspiracy theories about what might have happened to it. All it takes is a quick search online to see people claiming it was taken by aliens or even sucked into a black hole. Terrorism was also considered at first, especially after 2 passengers raised suspicion by boarding the flight with stolen passports, prompting concerns of hijacking. However, investigators were unable to link the men to any organizations, and instead found out that their intention was to seek asylum in China for a better life. There was also a passenger who was identified as a flight engineer, and so could possibly take over the aircraft. Others listed the possibility of a fire originating from lithium-ion batteries in the plane's cargo, as well as a cabin depressurization that could have left the crew unconscious and turned on the autopilot until the Boeing 777 ran out of fuel. However, flight simulations and experts claim that the first turn taken by the plane was beyond the limits of the autopilot configurations, meaning that either the aircraft was in manual control or someone with the proper knowledge programmed it to do so. With that said, further investigations from the MH370 often point out the captain of the flight as one of the main suspects, since whatever happened to the flight happened in the cockpit. Zahari Ahmad Shah was a friendly and well-respected pilot by his colleagues.
So Captain Zahari Shah, he was on a very good airline in a very good plane.
Yeah, and he was a type-rated examiner too, so he's at the top of the tree.
So a pretty powerful position for him to be in.
And very trusted.
He had a lot of sway.
Yeah.
Shah was 53, married, and had 3 children, as well as grandchildren and many nephews. He had more than 18.000 hours of flight experience and had a spotless record. He was known for being extremely passionate about aviation, posting several photos and videos related to the subject on his social media profiles.
Hi everyone, this is a YouTube video that I made as a community service.
He was so into it that he actually had a flight simulator at his own home. However, after the MH370 disappearance, his house was searched, and it was stated that his simulator contained a record of a suspicious route that ended in the southern Indian Ocean. According to Malaysian police reports, this path was thoroughly examined by Shah. But as similar as this simulation may be to the presumed route taken by the MH370, the coordinates used in this path could be derived from several flight sessions. With that, the police claimed that this doesn't serve as evidence to show it was premeditated. The pilot's responsibility? But there are still people who believe that Shah was truly responsible, mainly because of his political background. Zahari was politically active and was an avid supporter of his distant relative, Anwar Ibrahim, a democratic opposition leader who was sentenced to 5 years in prison for sodomy, hours before the Malaysian flight MH370.
He was said to be quite upset by that verdict. Now, he was active in the party, but again, there's no claim of responsibility in any of this. But that's one lead. Again, would it be enough for him to take such drastic action without saying he did it?
In addition, Shah was raised on the island of Penang. This fact is enough to make some speculate that he wanted to get a final view of his birthplace before ending everything, which would explain the plane's second turn around the island. Moreover, a noteworthy inconsistency by Zahari is that he failed to repeat the assigned radio frequency during the last verbal communication, not following the standard procedure to repeat the frequency. Knowing that, the flight simulation does end up looking suspicious, but there is no one who can be so sure about the pilot's true character. However, the Prime Minister of Australia at the time, Tony Abbott, is certain that the mystery behind MH370 was evident all along, being, indeed, a mass murder-suicide case.
I'm not going to say who said what to whom, but let me reiterate, I want to be absolutely crystal clear. It was understood at the highest levels that this was almost certainly murder-suicide by the pilot.
Despite Abbott's revelation, the Malaysian government never even considered Zahari responsible for the tragedy. In fact, in 2018, the government released its final report on the case, stating that the team is unable to determine the real cause for the disappearance of MH370. Now, if they knew the reason behind it, why not reveal it? Most likely due to a possible embarrassment from the Malaysian government to have one of its pilots do such a thing. the much-awaited end. What matters is that this theory is backed up by the newest and most promising major discovery made by Australian specialists and authorities, the WSPR, or Weak Signal Propagation Report. The WSPR is a network of weak radio signals that cover the globe and creates a new tracking technology simply using amateur radios. The radios send out signals to see how far they travel. When it's received by another operator, it's logged into the WSPR database, which has gathered records since 2009. These signals act like tripwires, meaning that if an aircraft flies through them, it can be tracked. And considering that the signals are sent out every 2 minutes, this resulted not only in a much more detailed flight path for the MH370, but its crash site and final resting place. Such a breakthrough discovery fills the affected families with a bit of hope, making them long for a new and hopefully final search for the Malaysian MH370, so that the authorities can put an end to this mystery and all the people involved can finally find some peace. To top all that off, the WSPR tracking raises the possibility that politics were in fact involved in the flight's disappearance. According to the device, at 3:12 a.m., the MH370 entered a holding pattern. In other words, a loop in the sky that lasted about 22 minutes. This is a maneuver that had no point to be made under those circumstances, and could only be done manually. Captain Mike Glynn believes that negotiations took place over those 22 minutes, possibly between the pilot and someone on the ground. During this time, both could have discussed Anwar Ibrahim's fate, either requesting new elections or a resignation, for instance. Whatever it was, Glynn is sure that something was indeed going on. This is, however, just like all the other theories listed here, a possibility. Only the plane's flight recorder, if found someday, will tell us what really happened in the MH370 flight.
As I said, there are a number of theories here. All of them do have elements of truth, and all of them do have elements of evidence attached to them. Until we find the plane, until we can decode, in the event that we can find it and decode what's on board there, those are questions that are going to remain unanswered.
Almost a decade later, the mystery still goes on. Will we ever find out the truth about MH370 one day? If you like this content, make sure to click on one of the cards on the screen to watch similar videos.